is for All Sports Podcast.
Welcome to the All Sports Podcast with me, Matt, and today, Joel. How are you, mate?
Hello, Matt. Very cosy tonight, just the two of us.
Very cosy indeed. So tonight we are going to talk about the football Prem. Well into the Prem season now. Actually, Champions League coming up already next week, quickly after the international break. So yeah, looking forward to that in this upcoming week. We haven't spoken about it, but maybe we do a little preview. I'm not sure if you want to get some fixtures up in the background whilst I do this monologue. So we had the Prem this weekend, and we also had the F1 in Azerbaijan, and they're kind of our two main features for this evening. So we'll dive straight into that, and probably a good place to start for the Prem, and probably the biggest fixture of the weekend on paper is the North London Derby, and it being played at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think both teams would settle for a point. I think going into the weekend as an Arsenal fan, I'd have probably settled for a point. The way Tottenham have started the season, the Arsenal injuries that were picked up over the last few weeks as well. But scraped to a classic 1990s Arsenal 1-0 victory.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think in the context of the fixture, Arsenal definitely would have been happy with a draw. But I think the longer the game went on, the clearer it became that they were going to win 1-0, to be honest. It was just like the way that they defend, and like the tenacity and the discipline that they defend with, I think is really striking at the moment. They're still yet to concede a goal, I think. But Brighton scored, didn't they? Brighton scored against them, so they conceded one goal. But I just found the way that they kept the lines tight, and like the way that they hassled Spurs, particularly like their counter pressing, like when Spurs won the ball back, the way that Arsenal get themselves back into position and kind of get around the ball again is really impressive. Their recovery runs are, they're out of this world, really. The effort that they put into getting back in and getting themselves back into position, like I said, is really impressive. Thought that was like the standout, really. That and like the uncertainty that Spurs showed from set pieces again. Their goalkeeper doesn't look particularly comfortable, does he? And there was a point in the first half.
Vicario. I was going to say it actually is the hallmark of a Premier League winning side is they have keepers that will get you an additional 6 to 12, 15 points, and they don't have that.
No,
so it's a weakness in their side, and it is a point in Arsenal's side that they continually look to improve on. And it seemed harsh with Ramsdale, but Arteta just wasn't willing to settle, and wanted to get someone that played the style of football, but also was going to get those additional points. I think that was something that was touted about Petr Cech when he came to Arsenal, even as a veteran goalkeeper, is that he will gain you an additional 12 points in a season.
Yeah. There was like a point in the first half where I think Arsenal had a corner and it went, I think he came and kind of flapped at it, and he was like insisting to the linesman that he hadn't touched it, but another corner was given. And Neville on the comms was like, right, get it right on top of him now. And Arsenal actually took one short, which I think was the only blot, really. I think other than that, they really played on the goalkeeper's insecurities and put him under a lot of pressure. And in the end, it told with the winner. But yeah, like after that, I just a bit disappointed in Spurs, really. I didn't really feel like they threatened. The standout chance is probably the Solanke one, where I think it's Son wins the ball back high up and it just ricochets into Solanke, and he's got so much time and space, but he just takes forever to get the ball out of his feet and then tries to kind of go past Saliba rather than getting a shot away. And I don't know. I think there's a question mark about him, about whether he's a genuine top level striker. I guess we'll find out over the next couple of years at Spurs. But moments like that do seem to pass him by a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like with strikers like him, and I'm going to put like Tony in the same bracket, Calvert-Lewin in the same bracket. When you're the main striker for a team that's in the mid to bottom half of the Premier League, it's easy to stand out and get some goals, get double-figure goals every single year. When you're in the top four teams, and those chances matter, and the competition for places is higher, it seems like that's where the pressure tells. And it seemed like he looked quite low on confidence. I felt similarly. I was going to say, I'm switching games a little bit, but similarly with Calvert-Lewin, he had an opportunity where he could have put a chip in, but just didn't have the confidence in his finish. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that you see with players like Nketiah as well for Arsenal, is they're just rusty.
It's their instincts, isn't it? Like I still do think Spurs will be a good place for Solanke, and it feels like a decent move. But that was just one where I was a bit like, oh, is he gonna cut it there? So I think there's still a question mark. But yeah, it's early days, isn't it? He's coming back from an injury and all that stuff. He might have been a bit desperate to get a goal as well, which might have clouded his decision making a little bit. The other kind of theme from the game, I thought, was just how far away from the goal Son and Maddison were for the entire game. Like, they just couldn't get them into dangerous positions. I don't know if that was like what Arsenal were doing more than what Spurs were trying to do, but yeah, it definitely wasn't working for them. I don't think. Like, they had a lot of the ball in good areas and just didn't really create too much. So there's like a bit of an undercurrent with Ange at the moment, isn't there? And he's getting a bit spiky in his interviews. Yeah. So I don't know. I think he could do with a few decent results probably.
Yeah, I can't see where they're going to get many goals from this season, though. They've not got a lot of goals in their team. I think they've relied on Son to bail them out quite a lot. And now with the captaincy as well, I don't know if it's going to weigh too heavily on him. Timo Werner obviously coming in as well. Maddison can score and contribute, but is inconsistent. He hasn't yet really done it for Tottenham. Yeah, just on paper, they don't look competitive. They're not threatening that top three that we've spoken about over the last couple of weeks for sure. The top team in North London has definitely swayed strongly back in Arsenal's favour over the last couple of years, and it looks like there's a big gulf between the two teams.
Yeah, they're a much better team at the moment.
So, on to another rivalry. England's longest played fixture, or most played fixture.
Yeah.
Everton Aston Villa.
Yeah, I was there. I mean, you mentioned Calvert-Lewin. He was really good. Obviously, he misses those two chances. Yeah. But yeah, completely bullied both of Villa's centre halves. Like, that can happen with Pau Torres. He's not like he's not a really committed defender, and he's not exactly the strongest defender around. But yeah, it's very rare that every concert gets beat up the way that Calvert-Lewin did to him on Saturday. So yeah, maybe he's in a good bit of form, but there were still those two chances that really I think the game hinges on. Like they got those two goals in the first half. But I don't know if it's just the way Everton are at the moment, also the way Villa are a little bit as well, but it never really felt like they were going to hold on. And with Villa getting a goal 10 minutes before half time, it was like, oh, okay, we are going to turn this around eventually. It does just feel like a matter of time.
It was big for momentum, although I would say McNeil looked incredibly good.
Yeah, he had a good game as well, didn't he? Yeah.
Was it McNeil that did that De Bruyne-esque pass? For Calvert-Lewin.
For the goal or for one of the missed chances?
No, I think it's for the goal. Was it?
He did a free kick.
Yeah,
he put the free kick in. Yeah,
yeah.
Really cool. Poorly defended. But anyway, yeah. I think Everton are just in one of those moments where everything's going. I do kind of agree with Dyche. Like, it's not every mistake is kind of being punished, and they're not taking their chances, and that is obviously culminating in them not winning many football matches. I mean, Villa had like chances that they didn't take as well. I think Watkins could have, he picked up 2 goals, but he really could have walked off with 4 quite easily.
Yeah.
Like the standout one is like the left-footed chance that he had. I think it was still 2-2, and like Maatsen had got in behind down the left-hand side and kind of pulled it back perfectly. He's kind of maybe 10 yards out, something like that. Like last season, he would have just put that away. But I don't know, he still looks like he's got a little bit of rust in him. The 2 goals that he got, the header, like really good leap. I don't really think Keane should be letting him win that, but really good leap and like showed great desire to get his head on it. I don't think he could really miss the second one. But yeah, he's still got a little bit of rust in him, but
you still got to be there though. And
yeah.
He's getting in. He gets into the right positions. He does that. He does that number 9 positioning really well.
That's why I was never worried about him. Like I think he'd gone 8 Premier League games without a goal or something like that, but absolutely no concerns at all because he's always getting chances.
And then Duran, the super sub, comes on.
Yeah, I mean, he's giving Emery a bit of a headache at the moment. Like, that was an unbelievable goal. Like, he's just got this reputation amongst the fan base as being a complete enigma. They absolutely love him for it. Just like the unpredictability of what he's going to do and the nature of the way he plays. He's like a bit unhinged, to be honest. And it's just a bit of a throwback. Like, there was that big trend last week, wasn't there, with the Barclaysman, and that was a typical Barclaysman goal, and he is a typical Barclaysman, like just somebody who can do something out of nothing. Like I say, a real enigma, great to watch, and the fans absolutely love him. But I get him wrong all the time, and called him wrong in the moment on Saturday as he receives.
So everyone, gets the ball, and everyone must be saying, "Shoot, shoot!" What did you say?
Yeah, people are up for him shooting from 30 yards out, and I was not. So I vocalised that with a big no. And then obviously it flies into the top corner, and everyone around me is just laughing their heads off at me, basically. A few people are trying to establish who said that, who said no. So yeah, it was quite funny, but I get him wrong all the time, and definitely got him wrong in that moment. It was an unbelievable strike. Like, to do that from there, he's miles out. So yeah, sensational goal.
Yeah, it's incredible technique, but also confidence, and that's contagious though. Like shooting like that, and we've not seen it in the Premier League for 20 years. People lashing in goals like that. I think it was the goal of the month conversation that's come up over the last couple of weeks ago. For what it was 20 years ago, all of these long range screamers that we just don't see anymore.
But then Sunday,
for him to do that with that technique. No, I didn't see the Newcastle one.
Oh, both screamers. Look them up. Shah and Harvey Barnes, 2 brilliant goals, really similar.
Nice to have some decent goals back in the Premier League. Saying that, you get decent assists. I think Kevin De Bruyne splitting open defences and Haaland's finishes are just great execution, really good positioning. But other people can't do that. And I think we overlook sometimes. So we think like a screamer is like the epitome of an amazing finish. But actually, the way Haaland can get up above everyone else and physically dominate them is also a talent in itself.
Yeah, there's not many better sights than seeing Haaland running through and like bodying a defender out of the way as well. So yeah, they come with all shapes and sizes for sure.
Well, that big through ball from Ederson. Onto the City goal. I did see Ederson with an assist, and I thought it must have been something like that. He's just cleared the ball out, but he deliberately picked him out.
He ping a ball. Yeah, he can.
Route one football.
So he can kick the ball so far. It is unbelievable how far he kicks it.
With the accuracy as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
and then, like you said, Haaland just body checking the centre back out of the way. Actually, I was going to say just quickly before we move on from Villa, Onana, did he get hooked off? Is that what happened? Because obviously the goal was his mistake, and he stayed down on his knees pretending that he was injured because the goal was his mistake. Didn't chase back, even put in any effort, just pretended that he was injured, which is very embarrassing. So he got hooked off.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. So Emery said after the game, tactical decision. We needed more control of the ball. He was quite clever about it. He was very positive about Onana and said, it's a brilliant start. But still working towards this thing that Emery says all the time. He says our idea. So he said we're still working towards our idea and how we want to play. That's still a work in progress. So he kind of challenged him a little bit, whilst also being very positive about him as well. But yeah, it was 100% a tactical decision. There was no injury there. But then he comes up. He's the one on the pitch at the end of the game, giving it loads to the Holt end, tapping the badge, and then
that's good.
But then he went over and tried to kind of clap the Everton fans at the same time. It's just that's not going to go well, mate. And he got both barrels from the.
All right, Man City. So they're running away with the league already.
Well, it feels like a big game next weekend already, doesn't it? It was a big result for Arsenal this week, not having two setbacks in a row before going there. Because even at this early stage in the season, I think psychologically it would have created a bit of a chasm. Arsenal
going away to Man City. If Man City win, which they're likely to on paper, then it's a 5-point gap between them after the first 5 games.
It's early in the season. It's fine. They've still got to go to Arsenal, and there will be slip-ups and stuff like that. Champions League starts this week, like you mentioned earlier. So there's still some, there's plenty of twists and turns to come, obviously. But I don't know. Arsenal are going to want to feel like they're in it. But maybe that's not necessarily. Maybe being out of it will also take the pressure off a little bit, and then they just go on a mad winning run or something like that. But yeah, next week kind of looks like a big game now, and it's probably got 0-0 written all over it. They'll probably be quite cagey. I don't think they'll really fancy losing the game. So
it's going to be off the back of Champions League midway.
Yeah,
although fortunately it is on the Sunday. It wouldn't have been had it have been Liverpool. They'll be playing Saturday lunchtime, I imagine. No, they're not. Saturday. No, they're playing at 3:00. So their fortune has changed with Arnie Slot. Well, maybe not from this last weekend. But they're actually in the 3:00 game. Should we touch on Liverpool quickly then?
Yeah, probably. I think the story's more Forest, isn't it? Than their start.
I think so.
Their start to the season, really. So they're unbeaten. 2 wins, 2 draws. And from what I can see, obviously I've only seen highlights. It was a bit of a masterclass from old Nuno. Kind of set them up to plug the middle of the pitch and not allow Liverpool to play there. That's where they want to play, and then kind of unleash Elanga and Hudson-Odoi onto the pitch at the right moments, and they created more than one very good chance. Perfect away performance really from them.
I think their side's really solid. I think they obviously looked solid at the back because they didn't concede, but they actually looked organised at the back, and their system that they played, they flooded the midfield. They flooded the midfield really well. But James Ward-Prowse, Elanga was a threat the whole time. Hudson-Odoi was, although he came off fairly early. I'm not sure if he's got picked up an injury either, but Chris Wood as well. They've got, I don't see them being a relegation team this year. And I think Nuno Espirito Santo, I think he's a great manager. I think they've done really well to get him in the books. I think Notts Forest have got a good few years ahead of them.
Yeah, if Nuno gets a side who properly buy into what he's asking them to do, then yeah, I think he's long enough in the tooth to get results. Enough results to get you to mid-table in the Premier League with a squad like that.
Yeah, get to 40 and cruise.
Yeah, I guess there's a bit of a theme at the bottom of the table. Southampton do not look great.
I mean, Southampton didn't look great.
No.
Southampton looked really poor, and I don't know where they're going to start getting results from. They need to address this quickly. Because they look really weak. I mean, Everton didn't. The ability to get 2 goals, specifically against Villa, who have been a strong side.
Yeah, I feel like if you were looking at that Everton result outside of the context of the previous result, then it might not look quite as bad. But throwing away two goals leads in 2 kind of game weeks in a row, that's not a good look, is it? There's 6 teams down there at the moment. Is that 1, 2, 3, 4? Yeah, there's 6 teams down there on 2 points or less after 4 games. And when you're looking at that, like Palace are probably going to pick up some points, and like Everton maybe, but like I really don't fancy them this season. Like I think this could be the one where they really, really struggle and it goes to the wire, because I don't really see, especially in midfield, much Premier League quality there.
No, I don't think so. And like I said a few weeks ago, before the international break, is dangerous for them with the commitment and the build of this new ground, going down to the Championship with this enormous stadium. It's going to be financially very, very hard for them. It's hard enough to sustain your position in the Premier League, like Arsenal found when they moved into the Emirates, and Tottenham as well financially have found with moving into their new stadium as well. It's really difficult. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, big season.
So we speak about Man City at the top and dominating. It's not going to affect them this year probably, but their hearing has now started for their financial misconduct, we'll call it. Basically said who was representing whom, and then went for an early dinner. So not a lot happened today. But what we do know now is there is an absolute pack of lawyers on each side. We also know that it's not just Premier League financial fair play rules that have been breached, it's UEFA as well. So having 2 different almost jurisdictions that they're having to answer to puts them in a very difficult position, because there's 115 or 130 charges that have been leveled against them, whichever way you see it. But it's basically categorized into 3 pots, one of which is uncooperation. So the uncooperation is basically they've not cooperated with the investigations when they've happened over the last 10 years. And then they've also been charged with illicit financing. So the illicit financing is probably one of the ones that's a little bit more damning. They've been fudging the books in terms of how much money they're getting in sponsorship deals, so that they can get around the financial fair play. So they're saying what they're getting in terms of income is higher than it actually is, because they're overinflating what their deals are. And then they've got some other financial fair play and funding issues to do with actual players and staff. It doesn't really feel like they've got much of a leg to stand on, and the people that are doing the prosecuting are the ones that prosecuted Everton. So they've got the same lawyers in, so they've got a precedent and they've got form with actually making charges stick. So we don't expect that it's going to close off for another 10 weeks. So it's
going to be next year, isn't it, when we actually find out?
It's going to be early next year that we then get a verdict, and then there's a right to appeal, which they'll have a few months for. So it's going to be the end of this Premier League season that it's actually settled from verdict and appeal. and then it will be applied. So over the summer, we can expect to see the verdict and whatever charges applied. Some of the punishments that are being touted are obviously docking of points. UEFA push hard for relegation, so that could happen too. They can also be stripped of titles because they won 3 or 4 titles within the period in question. So there's some pretty severe punishments that could be handed out to them. So that's going to loom over them. While they're in court for the next 10 weeks, but it's pretty much going to drag on for the whole season. So I'm not sure how that does affect playing staff.
I think they've been pretty good at it not playing a part, really. Like Guardiola just completely distances himself from it, doesn't he? And doesn't really talk about it. And yeah, I don't think there's any evidence that the players have felt any kind of detriment because of it. So I don't see why that changes with it continuing to rumble on. I don't feel like there's an outcome that's gonna suit anyone, really. Like no one's going to be fully happy with what happens. If City get a points deduction, people say it's not enough, and if it goes a similar way to the Leicester one did recently, everyone will be pretty angry. So I mean, it's so shrouded in mystery, and like they've all kind of, like secretly arrived at this hearing today, haven't they?
They didn't even know where the location was going to be until they actually turned up today. So yeah, there's a lot of secrecy, and a lot of the charges we know the top line, but we don't know the detail. It will start to come out, but yeah, it's a private hearing, so we'll wait for that to get our third-hand information.
And like perversely, that does damage to the Premier League as well. Like it would be the biggest scandal in Premier League history if they had to strip titles from City. So I think they'll probably end up with something of a middle ground, trying to come out of it not looking too bad themselves as well. And that's the Premier League when I say that. So I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe a bit of a points deduction and some pretty hefty fines. Is how I imagine it goes. I don't think they're stripping titles, and
not stripping titles, not relegating. There's just it would just get too messy if they did either of those things, I think.
But then the challenge is a precedent's been set with the punishment on other teams that have had lesser infringements. So that's kind of the benchmark for punishment.
Yeah, it's that number, isn't it? It's that 115, and now, like you say, it's been kind of corrected as it's actually 130. It's like, oh my god, okay.
The murky world of financial sport. Speaking of murky world of finances in sport, the murkiest world of finances in sport, probably F1.
Nicely done.
And specifically F1 in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan Baku Grand Prix this weekend, and what a race it was. In the last pod, we spoke about McLaren having 2 number 1 drivers and not elevating one driver to challenge Verstappen. They have now committed to Lando Norris as the closest driver to Max Verstappen, that they would back him and that Piastri would follow team orders and would surrender positions to Lando. However, as the qualifying started, Lando didn't make it out of qualifying round 1. So Lando Norris in qualifying went out in Q1 because the qualifying got yellow flagged. So he couldn't.
Which I assume is nothing to do with him.
Nothing to do with him. Car stops on track, or there's an incident on track, and they yellow flag it, and you've got to go down to a restricted speed limit, basically. It's like what would be a safety car in a race, or a virtual safety car in a race.
So it's just luck of the draw. Whoever's been out twice and done both their runs at that point.
Yeah, and he hadn't. He'd done one run, which was pretty decent, but not good enough, and he went out. So that totally mixed up the order for the race. Also starting from the back of the grid, well, actually the pit lane was Lewis Hamilton, who took an engine or changed his engine in the race for the race, as well as some upgrades to the car too. So he started from the pit lane. So you had 2 of the top drivers starting at the back, and that really mixed up the midfield and made it a more exciting race. Then up front, you had Leclerc, Piastri, actually Perez. We've been hammering Perez. all season. But Perez out-qualified Verstappen and was performing in the race too. It seems like I don't know if his luck's changed because of what happened at the end of the race, but it seems like he's kind of got his mojo back. The advantage of the Azerbaijan street circuit is they've got a 2.2 kilometer straight. So if you get within DRS zone, you can close up to a 100-meter gap. So with the DRS getting up to 350 kilometers an hour, it's very fun to watch. And obviously a lot of late braking, lunges down the inside. And we saw some of that. And actually Piastri did that to take pole position or to take first position away from Leclerc. He did a really late lunge down, late braking, and an amazing overtake. And in the end, that's what won him the race. Leclerc and Sainz, then in the Ferraris, were battling away with Perez. And Perez is closing the gap to second on Leclerc and is approaching him on the straight. Doesn't quite make it stick. And then overcooks it and doesn't have great traction out of the corner. So Sainz overtakes him. And then as they're going along the next straight, Sainz is moving into the racing line behind Leclerc. He's kind of neck and neck with Perez. Perez is slightly behind, but both of them are going towards the center of the track. They clash, go into the wall, and then both out of the race. So I said about Perez's luck. Maybe his luck hasn't turned. His mojo's back and he's driving well and he was driving fast. He was outperforming Verstappen. Verstappen just struggled with the car the whole race, even to the point where Lando, who had qualified in the bottom 5, actually managed to climb up the leaderboard and finished ahead of Verstappen in the race too. So that just shows how much Verstappen was struggling with the car, that his title contender started 10 places behind and managed to leapfrog him in the race.
Yeah, I mean, they're so much faster than him at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, to the point we've been talking about it. There was only an 8-point deficit in the drivers' championship, in the constructors' championship before. There was only an 8-point deficit, but that's now swung heavily in McLaren's favor because Perez crashed out. They only got Verstappen's meager points. How many points did he get in the race? He got 10 points in the race. So they only got an additional 10 points, whereas Piastri got 25 on his own and Norris picked up 13. So McLaren now on 476. They're now 20 points ahead. So they had a 28-point swing from the race.
Yeah,
so
it feels like it's going to be really hard for Red Bull to turn that around, doesn't it? They've just got to be...
Hey, Joel, they're not going to turn it around. I don't think they're even going to finish third, or I think they're going to finish third. I think Ferrari are going to overtake them too. Yeah. Leclerc and Sainz are both consistently driving in the top 6.
Yeah.
And with Verstappen and Perez, it's like Verstappen qualifies in the top 3 and Perez is struggling to make it into Q3 and is in his 10th or 12th, 13th position, and it hasn't been connecting the dots. I think Ferrari could get them. They're only 31 points behind. So I said 28-point swing for McLaren versus Red Bull this weekend. Ferrari, what was theirs? Oh, well, Sainz got written out. So it was 8 points because Leclerc finished 8 points ahead of Verstappen. But yeah, like it's only a few more of those 8 points and that deficit's gone. So yeah, Red Bull really up against it. Apparently they've stopped developing their car. So they'd gone into, since Newey left, a real lack of development. No new upgrades have been coming to races. And then we also had this brake change that James spoke about the other week. So it seems like Red Bull are going in the wrong direction, and Max Verstappen starting to get his radio messages starting to get very stressed, talking about like the overall composition of the car rather than just the race position, just really struggling with the car at the moment and is quite frustrated. Have
they replaced Newey at all?
No. They've not replaced Newey.
I guess there's a bit of a vacuum there. Maybe they're just waiting to get... I guess it's a bit like the only kind of parallel I can draw is like a director of football in in football. Like, somebody with a lot of power to make big decisions. You don't want to rush getting somebody into a position like that mid-season and maybe waiting until this season's over. Maybe they thought they had enough of a gap in both the constructors and the drivers to kind of do that, but it's kind of backfiring.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll see. Like, he's gone to Aston Martin now. They've put their money where their mouth is in terms of that. They've got state-of-the-art facilities now, so they've upgraded all of that. The only thing they don't have are two competitive drivers. Alonso is still picking up points.
Yeah, it's crazy. Surely.
Like, he got 8 points this weekend. Stroll didn't finish in the points. In fact, what happened with Stroll was just classic Stroll. He made a lunge on one of the first corners and was never going to be able to take the position. Went up the inside of someone basically and got a puncture. Then had to pit very, very early on in the race, and subsequently later withdrew from the race. I mean, that's just the typical Lance Stroll race. So I don't know. Like, there's a lot of rumors around them putting big money down for Verstappen. Like, they've got an unlimited pot of money. Lawrence Stroll can spend however much he wants. It's just, is he really committed to his son being the Formula One world champion? It just seems that's a stupid goal. Like, focus on the car, make it Team Stroll Racing or whatever you want to do. Lance Stroll's not going to win an F1 championship. No matter how good the car is, that number 2 driver is always going to be a better driver than him. If they bring Verstappen in for 2026 alongside Newey, new investment in these facilities, all of the other brilliant talent that they've brought in as well in terms of the engineering and backroom staff. And I think it's going to be a new era of F1 under Aston Martin. Keep with Lance Stroll and an unnamed second driver, then it feels like all of this money is just wasted.
Yeah, no room for nepotism in multi-billion pound sports, surely.
I mean, there shouldn't be. But money talks in F1. Interestingly, saying money talks. One of the drivers, Logan Sargent, with a bit of cash, got bumped out of Williams. Just wasn't cutting it for them, and they brought in Franco Colapinto, the Argentinian driver, and he's immediately up there in the points, right beside Alex Albon. So in the race, they finished 7th and 8th. So the Williams, who were back markers and not picking up any points for the last few years under James Vowles, and having Alex Albon as their number 1 driver, and now bringing in Colapinto in place of Logan Sargent, are really starting to perform too. Ferrari again looking good. It looks like they could get number 2 in the constructors. 2 brilliant drivers in Leclerc and Sainz, and next year going to have Leclerc and Hamilton. So all of these teams look like they're moving in the right direction in terms of their driver lineups. And then you look at Red Bull and it's just a massive red flag with Perez, and with Aston Martin, a massive red flag with Lance Stroll. 2 people are there because of 1, nepotism, but 2, Sergio Perez is there because of the money he brings in, 1 with the South American contingent and merchandise, and 2 because of the sponsorship that pulls in. So
do you think Verstappen could be going then? Like you mentioned him moving to...
I don't think the future of Red Bull is success. I think Red Bull I think they had the glory days with Sebastian Vettel, and they've had so with Verstappen as well. But these new regulations in 2026, no one really knows what team is going to come out on top yet. They're all designing their 2026 cars. So, but we know Verstappen and his dad are not happy with Red Bull. The Christian Horner stuff, the Adrian Newey bits, the second driver with Perez. Had he have had a better number 2 driver protecting him and mopping up some of the points like Leclerc's had with Sainz and Piastri and Norris have had with each other, even George and Lewis Hamilton have had together, there's no way that Norris would be this close to Verstappen. Like, Verstappen's title is at risk because of the number 2 driver as well. It definitely has a bearing on it too.
Yeah, you've got no foil, right? You just
Yeah, exactly.
there's
And they might not get,
no
and they might
flexibility.
not, and are likely to not get constructors either. He's going to want them. He's going to want that too. He obviously, first and foremost, you remember who won the drivers' championship. It's not really about constructors, but it's a very nice perk to have, and the cash is nice too.
Yeah.
All right. I think that'll wrap us for this week. If you've enjoyed listening along, you can like, subscribe, and rate us 5-star on Spotify. Get in touch at allsportspods@gmail.com, and we will catch you on the next one. Cheers.
Cheers, Matt.